restoration took place in the 1970s, noting that after the building of the High Aswan Dam, flooding of areas of the church totally stopped. The historic parts of the church now only has 3 domes and 3 altars left. It is naturally a big, attractive destination for tourists from across the world. Mohammed Abdurrahim for Nile Cruise.
Welcome back again. You're still watching us here on Nile Cruise from St. Mary's Church in Maadi, and we're very much delighted to have our guest today, who's also going to be shedding further light about the importance of this special occasion for all the Copts in Egypt. And once again, of course, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to all the Egyptians and Happy New Year. The flight into Egypt is a biblical event described in the Gospel of Matthew soon after the visit by the Magi's, who had learned that the king Herod intended to kill the infants of that area. An angel appeared to Joseph in a dream to tell him to flee the infants of that area, to flee Egypt with Mary and infant son Jesus. The episode is frequently shown in art as the final episode of the Nativity of Jesus in art, and was a common component in cycles of the life of the Virgin as well as the life of Christ. It is also held that the Holy Family visited many areas in Egypt. These areas included the Farama, Tal Basta, Wadi al-Natrun, Samanud, Bilbais, Samanud and Samalut. They're 2 different areas, and Maadi and Matriya and Asyut, among others. It is also a tradition that the Holy Family visited Coptic Cairo and stayed at the site of St. Girgis and Bacchus Church, and the place where the Church of the Holy Virgin stands now. At Al-Matariyah then in Heliopolis, and now part of Cairo. Of course, many trips were taken during the stop of Jesus Christ and Virgin Mary in Egypt, because Egypt was their favorite site, and they have a lot of memories and historic documents that are proved to be here in this holy land.
Indeed,
Muhammad.
Yasmin, and to know more about the Holy Trail of the Holy Family, we have the pleasure to introduce to you Father Polus Garas, Coptic Catholic Church of St. Anthony in Fagela, the Secretary General of the Council of Churches in Egypt. Father Polus, thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas also to you.
Now, some people outside of the world may not be aware very much of the significance to all the Egyptians attribute the fact of the Holy Family when Christ was an infant. He has found haven in Egypt for nearly 4 years after their flight out of fear from the precaution of King Herod. How do you explain this to our audience?
Well, we have to understand that Egypt have been a safe country all the time. For Ibrahim, our father, the father of Muslims and Christians and Jewish, he escaped to Egypt, and he found there what he needs of good reception and food and security. Also, Jacob, the son of Ibrahim, with all his sons, one of them is Joseph, who became, we could say, the second
Prime
personality
Minister
after Pharaoh.
Yeah.
So he saved Egypt, and all his brothers and the tributes of Jewish tribes came all and stayed for hundreds of years in Egypt. So Egypt is a safe country since Ibrahim till the Shah of Iran. Everybody who needs to be well received and well accepted and well treated has to come to Egypt.
Indeed, Egypt is the land of peace. Father Polus, take us step by step, if you would allow us, with the Holy Trail from the time that the Holy Family entered Egypt until they went to Deir al-Muharraq in Aswan?
Well, she already read the steps.
Yeah.
So we don't need to talk about the geographical steps.
What about the historic evidence?
We just have to meditate about the meaning of the visit.
Yes.
This means that the Holy Child and his family were treated in their country. They didn't found what they need of security, and they found it in Egypt. So they escaped to Egypt and they traveled. Imagine people walking from Bethlehem near Jerusalem, walking on feet until Upper Egypt in Asyut, just to find peace. And so Egypt is very significant for the Holy Family, where they found themselves and they saved the Holy Child from being killed by Herod's soldiers,
Yes.
who followed Jesus. As the tradition says, they followed Jesus even in Egypt, in the land of Egypt. They were escaping from the power of Herodes. Yeah.
Father, what do the historic documents mention about the time of the Holy Family had spent in Egypt? How long had they spent? What did they do? What were their life conditions?
Well, the tradition, the oral tradition, is the only historic science. We don't have places or things who could approve that the Holy Family were here. But we have the tradition. We have it in the Gospel, and the Gospel was transmitted with the tradition, one from the other, like al-Hadith al-Sharif, from one an fulan an till Abi Huraira said. So we have the ecclesiastical tradition who tell us about this visit, and many places have the honor to be named by to be step for the Holy Family.
Right. Father Polus, how did this journey, the journey of the Holy Family, affect the history of Christianity in Egypt for centuries, really, to come?
I don't see any effect, really, because the gospel came to Egypt with some mark in the year 60, and there were no ways of communication like we have now. So the event of the visit of the Holy Family to Egypt were limited just with the people who met them, and it wasn't a public adventure. So with the visit of St. Mark, when people began to be Christians, they rediscover the importance of the visit of the Holy Family to our country. It's the only country where Jesus went out. He was born in Palestine and lived in Palestine and died in Palestine and resurrected in Palestine, and he went nowhere else but to Egypt. So Egypt is a holy land because of Abraham, because of Joseph, because of Moses and the mountain, and because of the Holy Family who came to our land.
Indeed.
Yes, Father Polus, also in 2017, Pope Francis of the Vatican visited Egypt and later on approved to add that journey of the Holy Family on Egypt's religious tourism map. How did you regard this achievement?
Well, I have to talk about this because I know personally Pope Francis. My nephew is his personal secretary. Monsignor Ioannis is one of my students, and he became the secretary of the Holy Father. So he lives with him. They wake up and sleep all the day together. And so he loves Egypt by knowing Egyptian people. And he insisted to come to Egypt, also the dangers and the alarms who was receiving. He said, I'm going to Egypt. I must go to Egypt. And he came. He loves Egyptian people. He prays every day for us. And this act to bless the icon of the flight to Egypt of the Holy Family is a push for the tourism, the holy tourism, because in the Vatican they have an institute interested in holy tourism, pellegrinaggio. They make pilgrims to the holy places all over the world. Lourdes in France, Rome, Spain, Holy Land. He included also Egypt as one of those places, so they could organize journeys. And we started since a few months to receive people here and in Maadi, in Motaria, and many tourists are interested and pushed by the blessing of His Holiness Pope Francis.
Father Polus allows. Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise, coming to you away from the St. Mary, Virgin Mary Church in Maadi. With us is still Father Polus Garas. Father Polus, before the break we were talking about the significance of the sites that the Holy Family visited here in Egypt and how they act as a destination for tourists. So please tell us about the, if you were, allow me to ask you this. If you were a tour guide, if you were a tour guide for religious sites, yes, where will you take your guests as far, of course, as religious sites are concerned?
Well, wherever we trust that the Holy Family stopped. Motaria is one of the main places where there is a tree of Maria. And also here where we believe that the Holy Family stopped. Gabaliter is a very important place. Drunka also is a very important locality to visit because there is a monastery and many monuments there that prove that the Holy Virgin Mary was there.
Now, Jesus and the Holy Family, Father, took the route from Egypt to flee Palestine, Bethlehem in particular, and that trip took around 3 years. What historic sites were included in those 3 years during their travel period?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you because of the noise outside.
Yeah, well, I was saying, well, I can't do much about that as well, but let me repeat that a bit louder. Jesus and the Holy Family took the route from Palestine to Egypt,
yeah,
for a period of 3 years. So
yeah,
tell us about the also historical moments that took place during their trip From Palestine to Egypt.
They talk about Farma, El Arish. We have it all written, the places, but they stopped in Cairo and in in the zone what we call Masr Qadima, old Egypt, where there were a Jewish community in Egypt, in Cairo, and they used to pray in the synagogue still until today. And after they moved out to Mataria and to Minya and then to Asyut.
Yes. Father Polus, what are the lessons that we should learn from the trail, the holy trail of the Holy Family in Egypt?
Well, first lesson is that Egypt is a land of peace and land of security. Second, and the deepest lesson is, as we Christian people believe that Jesus is the Word of God, the Son of God, he would have the power to destroy all his enemies with one word. But he preferred not to face the enemy, but to seek peace and to escape from the power of Satan instead of facing him, because he was preparing himself, his family, and the entire world to deal the peace. It's very important concept. The angels who sung in the night of his birth is glory to God in the highest and peace on earth. So the mission of Christ is not to face our enemies. Instead of this, he said, love your enemies, bless those who persecuted you. So this is the most important lesson, because
Indeed.
in human mentality, he is a king, and the Mags recognize him as the king of Jewish, and we recognize him as the king of the world. He could have faced his enemy, but he chose no to face no war, but just come to the land of peace, to proclaim peace, and turn to proclaim peace for all the lands of the world.
Indeed.
Father Polus Garas, the Coptic Catholic Church of St. Anthony in Fagala, and the Secretary General of the Council of Churches in Egypt, thank you very much for joining us on Nile Cruise, and Merry Christmas.
Must thank you for everybody, and thanks to give me the chance to be with you here.
Thank you, Father Polus. Merry
God bless you.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Dear viewers, please stay with us. We'll be back here in Nile Cruise right after this. Singer Nuran Abu Talib held a musical concert in